Ryan Blaney is showing that he's a championship threat by winning 2 of the last 5 races. Wow, what in the heck happened here with Kyle Busch and Corey LaJoie? Let's break down everything that just took place at Pocono Raceway. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Pocono, where Ryan Blaney gets his second win of this NASCAR season. Team Penske starting to show a lot of speed in the later portions of this season. Then of course we'll talk about this big crash between Corey LaJoie and Kyle Busch. A little bit of tempers flaring there, causing a massive wreck. The big one at Pocono, we'll talk about that. We'll break down the playoff grid, some playoff trouble for Ross Chastain, a good day for Bubba Wallace. Let's break down all the action that just took place at Pocono Raceway. And there's one thing that every time we go to this racetrack, Indianapolis next week, sort of the same type situation, but really here at Pocono, is there's one word that we hear a lot on the TV broadcast going into this race and during this race, and that is strategy. Strategy, strategy, strategy. When I think of Pocono, I think of strategy. We've been saying it for years through every generation of race cars. It's such a big racetrack. The way it's flat, the way it's laid out, it is a strategic racetrack, and strategy played a huge role in today's race. That's how Ryan Blaney was able to get up front and get the win. Obviously, Denny Hamlin, who finished in the second position, right? If he hadn't have stayed out and won stage 2, which he did, if he'd have pitted early, gave up some of those stage points, gave up that playoff point, looks like Denny Hamlin could have had a better chance to get the race win than if he stayed out like he did to get the stage win. So once again, strategy just plays a huge role. It's hard to make the right strategy calls when you have cautions coming out, right? We had a caution with about 44 laps to go. That was really a big deal. That really changed everything because that allowed everybody to be in the fuel window. So that was really the big key moment of the race. We had some drivers that had more fuel in the car, so that means less time spent on pit road refilling the car with fuel. So that was an advantage of some drivers like Kyle Larson, like Ty Gibbs, like a few others. But unfortunately, on that final pit stop with 44 laps to go under that caution, Kyle Larson, Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, all had pit road speeding penalties, which was a massive mistake. Chase Elliott as well had a pit road speeding penalty. He was up front, looked like he had a shot to go for the win. That really took away their entire chance to get the win. So you saw that big mistake out of Kyle Larson, Elliott, Suarez, and Gibbs. They all had speeding penalties in Section 7 of the racetrack. So obviously the teams will have to go back and see exactly what happened there, why it was all in the same section, why it was 4 drivers all up front. So we'll obviously have to go back and take a look at that throughout the week. The teams will have to dissect that. But let's talk about Ryan Blaney, because what a win it was for him, showing a lot of speed, right? We talk about strategy at this racetrack, but the more speed you have at most racetracks, and even this one, the more speed you have, the more opportunities it gives you to make better calls and put you in a better position. That's what Ryan Blaney had. He was fast all day. This is actually his second win at Pocono. He got his first career win here in 2017. He actually outdueled Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was on old tires. I believe Ryan Blaney was on new tires. That was with the Wood brothers. I don't know if the Wood brothers in that 21 car has won a race since Ryan Blaney won that race at Pocono, but that was certainly a big win for him in 2017. Obviously, then moved over to Team Penske. They expanded to a 3-car team. He's now won his 12th race, which is second at Pocono, 12th career win. He also has that championship. So Ryan Blaney, obviously a big difference in the numbers from that first win in 2017. He's obviously had an impressive career, but big win for Ryan Blaney and really Team Penske as a whole. We can take a look, right? We talk about how Ryan Blaney won 2 out of the last 5 races, but Team Penske's won 3 out of the last 5 races, with Joey Logano winning that race in Nashville, and Logano showed speed today as well, finishing the 5th position. So certainly I was concerned for Logano going into these bigger ovals like Pocono, like Indianapolis next week. That concern starting to fade away. Obviously the win at Nashville is giving him a little boost of momentum. Obviously the win with Ryan Blaney at Iowa a few weeks ago is giving him a boost of momentum. And once again, you remember back in St. Louis a few weeks before that first Iowa win, Ryan Blaney had an issue where he ran out of fuel on the final lap, and that was another Team Penske driver that won that race, Austin Cindric, who was able to sneak in there and get into the playoffs. So all Penske drivers now have wins. Big win for Ryan Blaney. He's showing a lot of speed. He's showing that he's starting to peak again. You know, we saw last year where he peaked at the right time in the playoffs. Be interesting. We'll have to continue to watch to see if he continues that peak going into the playoffs, going into the championship for part of the season. You know, the round of 8. We'll see how far he can go. Racking up playoff points, getting these wins is certainly a big deal. 2 wins, that's 10 playoff points just from wins alone, plus the stage wins that he's collected. And, you know, where you finish in the regular season in points too, which he's moving up the grid, right? Getting good finishes, finishes, the 2 wins. Certainly a lot of things going right now for the 12 team of Ryan Blaney. Certainly a potential championship favorite. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top 10. Let's break down everything that we saw. Ryan Blaney obviously getting the victory. Denny Hamlin, nice second place finish. Talk about how Denny Hamlin's been fast, but not capitalizing on it, not getting the finishes. That's the big concern for Denny Hamlin, right? Because you can talk about, well, they have good speed all season, right? But if you're not getting the finishes with the good speed, that's really more of a concern than somebody that's getting better finishes without the speed, right? So certainly Denny Hamlin, a nice second place finish today, capitalizing on a strategy, not getting caught up in some trouble is certainly a good thing for that 11 team trying to turn around a rough few weeks after some incidences and having slow speed and obviously not getting results. Alex Bowman, a nice top 3 finish. Alex Bowman getting that third place finish is a pretty big deal as well. Obviously won last week at the Chicago Street Race, taking that momentum into today. Right when you get the win off of a strategy call, especially last week, that gives the crew chief a little bit more confidence, the driver more confidence, and that gives them more confidence in their decision making, I think. So certainly we saw that come into play today at Pocono with a very strategic racetrack, was able to get up there, get a nice third place finish, the highest finishing Hendrick car and the highest finishing Chevrolet as well. His teammate William Byron right behind him as well. Nice call. This was a really good turn for William Byron, right? Because we saw he was really fast at the beginning of the year. He got that win at Martinsville. That was his 3rd win of the season. Then things sort of fell off a little bit, and we've seen this out of William Byron really his entire career. He's really good in the first half of the season and then falls off the later we go into the year. So a nice 4th place finish for William Byron. We'll see if he can take that momentum, start finishing more consistently up front, see if he can get that 4th win of the season soon. But it seems like a summer stretch comes every time for William Byron. We'll see if he can turn it around, getting closer to the playoffs, 5 races to go. We'll have to continue to watch that 24 team. Really interesting there. Joey Logano, once again, I said that's a big deal for him to finish in the 5th position. Had a little bit more speed. He's been running a little bit better right after that Nashville win, because before that Nashville win, which that Nashville win was a little bit of a fluky situation, right? Everybody running out of gas, 5 overtimes, a weird situation, but it can give a team like Joey Logano and the crew chief Paul Wolfe a little bit of momentum to make more decision making, obviously give them some confidence. You can take more risk as well. With that win, you're guaranteed in the playoffs. Nice 5th place finish for Joey Logano today, showing more speed, while his teammate Ryan Blaney is, potential championship threat. So you don't want to be, on the back end of that. Tyler Reddick, a nice 6th place finish for him as well. He's moving up there in the points as well. I believe now 3rd in regular season points after, constantly getting consistent results. Brad Keselowski, a nice 7th place finish for him as well. He actually looked to be one of the fastest race cars of this race, but just didn't quite have enough time. He was on 4 fresh tires on that final run, where everybody else was on older tires or either 2 tires. So Brad Keselowski was, unfortunately for him, not able to get up there and battle for the top 5 or try to get the win. Just ran out of laps, but certainly a nice 7th place finish for him. Mark Truex Jr., once again, another one of those drivers looking to get a win in his final season. Still, I think, a championship threat, right? He runs up front every week, just hasn't quite got that victory yet. I do expect him to get one this season with the speed I've seen out of him, but a nice top 10 today, 8th place finish for MTJ. He was really fast all weekend. A lot of teams were pointing at him to be the car to beat this weekend with the speed he had. But once again, Pocono, strategy. Certainly mess up some of the fastest teams' days, which Martin Truex Jr. certainly had a lot of speed, but just the strategy didn't quite play out in their way with the way the cautions fell. Chase Elliott, solid 9th place finish, top 10 for him, coming back from that pit road speeding penalty, but a nice top 10 for Chase Elliott. He is now the regular season points leader, Chase Elliott, with that 9th place finish today. So certainly that's a battle you have to watch as well, because you do get more bonus points the higher up you finish in the regular season per round. So that's certainly why we want to keep tracking that. And Bubba Wallace, a big 10th place finish for him today, because he was battling Ross Chastain to get into the playoffs. He's currently the 17th driver, the first driver out. Ross Chastain had issues. Big day for Bubba Wallace. And Bubba Wallace has been able to get some results. I talked about earlier how, it's a concern when you're not capitalizing on results. It's really good when you're like Bubba Wallace today, didn't have the fastest race car, didn't have a top 10 car whatsoever, but was able to finish top 10 by taking advantage of the early wrecks and such like that. So certainly that's interesting as well. Let's talk about that playoff grid, right? Let's pull it up. We still have our 12 different winners. So looking at the drivers in green, right, that are currently above the cut line in points, not the winners, Martin Truex Jr. is really the only one I see that's guaranteed in, right? If I'm Martin Truex Jr., it's in the back of my mind, right? It's in the back of that team's mind that you still have to have enough points to make the playoffs. So I don't see a scenario with the cushion he has over Ty Gibbs in 14th. I just don't see a scenario where MTJ doesn't get the win, doesn't win a race this year, or with the speed they have, don't find a way to point their way in, right? I mean, you'd have to have 4 winners, all below the cut line, that's not him, to knock him out. I don't see a scenario where that happens. Smart Tricks Jr., I think, is completely safe. Don't have to worry about him missing the playoffs. The concern gets to when you get down to Ty Gibbs, and not necessarily for him points-wise, because, he's 67 points above, but the concern is if you get a winner below the cut line, right? Bubba Wallace, he could get a win at a track like Michigan where he's had speed. Kyle Busch, obviously he's won, 20 straight seasons. This is obviously a really bad year, but certainly we'd have to see what he can do. Todd Gilliland, Daytona is the second to last race of the year. Daytona is that second to last race of the year. I think is a really big deal. And we've seen some fluke winners before at the Brickyard 400 as well, some surprise winners, some winners you don't usually see win in the Brickyard 400, which is next week as well. So during this summer stretch, we have to keep an eye on a potential new winner. Now, a big concern points-wise is Ross Chastain went into today with a 40-something point cushion, but had an issue, a big issue here, got sideways coming out of turn 3, slammed the outside wall, completely ending his day. And once again, Bubba Wallace able to get that 10th place finish and was able to capitalize on the top 10, get past everybody else that was in the wreck. This wasn't a great day for Bubba Wallace. He did not have that much speed, but was able to capitalize, get that top 10. He was able to cut into that points deficit a little bit more, right? And if you continue to see that, if Ross Chastain has, a flat tire at another racetrack, or Bubba Wallace finishes good at like Daytona, or the Brickyard next week where we've seen some tire failures, Ross Chastain certainly has to be on his game, right? And then, of course, he's also the 16th guy. So if you get a winner below the cut line, right, like anybody below the cut line gets a win, Ross Chastain gets bumped out, and that would put Busch on the cut line. So certainly interesting. We'll have to continue to track it. Once again, 21 of the 26 races complete now, 5 races to go. We do get a 2-week break in the middle for the Olympics, but we do have 5 races to go until the playoffs with the Brickyard 400. Big deal next week as well. Certainly have to keep an eye on that moving forward. I do want to break down a few drivers that had rough days, but I want to start out with this big wreck. Certainly a big incident here with Kyle Busch. Corey LaJoie takes out a lot of cars. Let's take a look at what happened here. It looks like Kyle Busch turns to the inside a little bit, makes a little bit of a left turn, trying to block Corey LaJoie, protecting that inside lane. LaJoie doesn't like it, sort of gets into him and then turns up the racetrack into Kyle Busch, just turning Kyle Busch in the inside grass. Busch comes back up and slides into traffic. Heavy contact on a race restart at a really fast racetrack on a long straightaway. Certainly not a good look for Corey LaJoie. He's had a rough year. If you remember last year, I think he was the only driver that went the whole season without a DNF. Certainly multiple DNFs already this year, causing a lot of incidents, a lot of crashes, it seems like. Certainly today was not a good look for the 7 team, and there was a little bit of controversy following this, right? I mean, you wrecked Kyle Busch, one of NASCAR's biggest stars, but you took out a lot of other cars as well at a high-speed racetrack. Not a great look for Corey LaJoie. I believe there could be some sort of penalty coming after this. I didn't like the look at all from Corey LaJoie. I did not like this moment at all. Obviously I'm a Kyle Busch supporter, but I didn't like it because it was at a high-speed track, took out a lot of race cars, and did a lot of damage. And I didn't like the crew chief, his remarks after saying, Kyle got what he deserved. To me, that's just sort of... in my opinion, just not the right thing to say, right? I don't think you should. I don't believe that Kyle Larson's crew chief, Cliff Daniels, would have said that. I don't believe Rudy Fugle would have said that. I don't believe Adam Stevens for Christopher Bell would have said that, or Chris Gabehart. I don't believe those crew chiefs would have made that comment. So that's a concern for me, because I think that sort of shows that just not great leadership comments, in my opinion. I didn't like the comments from the crew chief following that wreck. And just, once again, just my opinion, I just didn't like the wreck. I didn't like the comments made after. Just seems like a really bad situation for a driver that's having a really bad year, which is Corey LaJoie. So certainly, and his teammates also been doing a little bit better than him. Carson Hocevar, his rookie teammate, so that could be adding a little bit of pressure and stress as well. So hopefully we'll see what happens next year with the new crew chief, a very experienced crew chief heading in to fill in that spot for Corey LaJoie next season. We'll continue to see how that works moving forward. Just wanted to talk about that. Another big wreck we saw earlier in the race, I believe it was lap 14, was Noah Gragson backed into the outside wall. Really unfortunate situation there for him. Day ended early. He said, he was just upset with the entire weekend. Just a bad weekend overall for that 10-team SHR. Finished 14th a week ago. Obviously, he said he's looking forward to the Brickyard 400 next week. Just a bad week for Noah Gragson. But that's it. Ty Gibbs also had issues. He actually had a blown engine in the later portions of this race. This was your pole sitter, looked to be really fast in practice, obviously was really fast in qualifying, was able to get the pole. So certainly a very disappointing end to his day, because obviously he was looking to get his first career win. He's run some laps at Pocono before, has run well at Pocono before, but to not even get a good finish with an engine failure, obviously fell a little bit in the pack on strategy. Just not an ideal day for Ty Gibbs, and he's had a rough season, I would say. From somebody who's led a lot of laps, you go back to that Bristol race earlier this year, dominated that race essentially, but couldn't quite manage the tires as well as others. Lost that race to Denny Hamlin. I think it's been a bit of a frustrating year for Ty Gibbs, at least looking at it from a fan perspective, because he's given up a lot of opportunities to win or just had things go wrong. He's run well, gets caught up in somebody else's mess at the front of the field. Seems like a bit of a rough season right now for Ty Gibbs, but we'll continue to watch everything moving forward. That's it. That's really all there is to talk about following what I thought was a really solid race at Pocono. A lot to talk about, a lot of drama. We do go back to the Brickyard 400 next year. That's the first time we've raced in the Brickyard 400 at that facility, at that oval racetrack at the Brickyard since 2020. So certainly it was considered one of NASCAR's crown jewels for a while, a big deal, big race for NASCAR for multiple years. They took it off the calendar because it lost some of its prestige. Now it seems to be coming back a little bit. We'll see. I think it's a big deal. I'm excited to see these next gen cars on the Brickyard surface in Indianapolis. That should be a lot of fun to watch, and obviously I'll do a race review following that. And of course, that's it. That's all there's to talk about. Please like and subscribe and share the video if you can. I do appreciate it. And of course, about Kyle Busch's worst season ever continuing. Let's get rowdy.